Greg, thank you. Well, security at home now, and questions about whether the CIA could spy on people through their refrigerators. There's this report out from Wired Magazine's national security blog that says the CIA director, David Petraeus, recently spoke about smart technology in our homes, technology that connects a television or an oven to the internet. It's all supposed to make our lives easier, but Director Petraeus says spies could use that technology to keep an eye on people without their knowledge. Let's take this to the judge. Fox News senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano, is with us. I mean,
you can't make this up.
The CIA is not supposed to collect evidence or do anything in the United States. That's the job of the FBI.
Well, it's not only the job of the FBI, but the statute creating the Central Intelligence Agency in 1947 specifically prevents them from collecting information about individuals in the United States. Now, can they collect scientific data? Can they collect atmospheric information? Can they collect information from public sources? Of course they can. But we're talking about targeting or spying on a human being in the person's home, absolutely prohibited under the law. So it's a bit of a head scratcher as to why General Petraeus, a man of great repute and, as far as I know, great honor and integrity, would say this. He's either revealing what might happen, or he's saying, you better watch out, this won't happen under my watch, but I want you to know what's out there. Or, to the consternation of the people that work for him, he's revealing what they're doing, if they're doing it.
Well, they're not supposed to come in my home.
Correct.
Right? They need a search warrant for that, don't they?
Yes, they do. The government needs a search warrant to come in your home, personally, directly, or virtually. I'm not talking about if they're chasing a bad guy into your home. I'm not talking about an emergency situation. The government can't use, for example, heat-seeking devices from a vehicle in front of your house. The Supreme Court has said no. That's the same as going in the house. And to get in the house, you have to have a search warrant. And in order to get a search warrant, it can't be a fishing expedition. You have to go to a judge and explain under oath, the you being the federal agents, what evidence of crimes there is in the house.
But, you know, if they could come collect whatever they want illegally, and unless they use it to try to prosecute or to try to affect some end, we might never even know.
That's the regrettable and sad part about this. Unless the evidence that they obtain is used in court or in some public way, we will never know what they have obtained from us. So, without scaring people into staying awake at night, is General Petraeus revealing what is already going on? Or is General Petraeus saying, watch out what you buy, because bad people in a future government could do this with it? I don't know what the general meant.
So the government...
When I saw this, I thought it was one of these crazy emails that we all get in this business.
Some blogger.
From over the weekend, but he said it, and he's the director of the CIA.
So do you think he knows that I have almond milk, Heineken, Red Bull, and water, and some Diet Coke in my refrigerator?
He does now.
He does, right? I know, but I mean, he knows about the hummus too, though. I mean, they're keeping it just doesn't sound like very interesting.
You know, I don't understand the technology. So if there's a computer chip in your microwave or your refrigerator, I don't know if it lets them listen to you having a conversation in your kitchen, or if it tells them what's in the refrigerator or what's being cooked in the microwave.
It depends on what kind of chip they put in there, because I ain't got no chip in my stuff.
Right.
Guaranteeing to you.
Same here.
As far as you know.
As far as I know, you're right. I mean, that's the troubling aspect of this. We don't know where the computer chips are, and we don't know who in the government is doing what with them.
Yeah.
Are you ready for the next big thing? It may be moving in with you. The Financial Times reports that next week, Apple will announce a new way to connect you to what techies call the Internet of Things. Your iPhone would gain the power to control your home, lights, appliances, security system, and so on. CNET editor Dan Ackerman will be in San Francisco on Monday for Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference, but he's here with a preview. Dan, good morning.
Good morning to you guys.
What are we expecting Apple to tell us next week?
You know, this is the Developers Conference, so it's usually very focused on software and concepts, and one of the concepts people have been talking about is Apple getting into what they call kind of the smart home or the Internet of Things. That's an area a lot of big companies like Google are very interested in, so you know Apple's got to be interested in it also.
We've gotten so used to these conferences hearing as the result of them changes to our phones, changes to our computers. You're telling us the next big thing then is really things in our home, things we'll be able to control from our iPhone.
I mean, that's an idea that's kind of been bubbling up for a long time. It never quite seems to arrive, probably because a really big company like Apple or Google hasn't really gotten behind it and given it a big push. But if Apple says we're going to set up a standard for like smart home stuff you can control from your phone or your tablet, and all these other companies are sort of invited in to make stuff that works with it, that could be kind of the big push that they need.
Google has already sort of taken steps in this area, haven't they? They bought something called Nest Labs for $3.2 billion.
That is a real cult favorite. If a $3 billion company can be called a cult favorite, Nest makes like a really cool, like almost a remote control thermostat. It's an awesome little device. It's definitely a first step, and it's Google getting into the hardware of smart homes. So Apple has got to be looking at that and saying, you know, we want to make sure we're upfront with Google in this business too.
It's interesting you should say that, because it seems so long as a consumer, Apple has resisted putting any of their software into someone else's hardware. So does that mean down the road, Apple's going to say, we'll make our own stuff and put our own technology in our own stuff, like a thermostat?
I mean, that's a good question. I feel like Apple doesn't want to get into the hardware business of any of this stuff. That's sort of a big labor-intensive business. They'd rather have companies that make refrigerators and stoves and home security alarms and washing machines make stuff that's sort of Apple approved. And if you do that, maybe there's a chance you can get into that Apple store, which is like the most valuable retail space around. Sure. And they really want everyone to kind of get that approved by Apple checkbox on them.
If we have this sort of home invasion, if you will, by all these devices, do you think this is something consumers want or are going to embrace?
You know, it's something we thought about since the World's Fair, since the Jetsons. It's an intriguing concept. I'm not sure how much of it people actually want to integrate into their lives. It might be cool if your refrigerator can tell you, you know, when you're out of a certain product and how you can just go online and order more, but you want to not be able to cook dinner because your oven needs a firmware update.
Even though we have some companies that are already doing things like that, where you can control from your iPhone, it would seem like this is pretty much untouched territory. So is the competition between these companies unbelievable?
I mean, there have been traditional companies like Philips, like Samsung, who have made some of these things for years, but they don't really have the heft to get it in front of everybody. And how often do you upgrade your kitchen appliances, for example? There's kind of a long turnaround time. But once you get the big guys who you think of as technology companies first, like Google, like Apple, then you may be able to say, okay, I'll try a little bit of it, and maybe next time I buy a new house or do a big upgrade, I'm in.
So do you think this is the next frontier of technology, Dan?
It's one of the potential next frontiers. It depends on whether people really want to spend the money to upgrade their homes and whether somebody, maybe a big guy like Apple, can get everything to work together. That's always the key, getting everybody on the same plan at the same time.
I would be fascinated if someone doesn't want this technology, because I think it's amazing. It's life-changing.
Yeah, certainly is.
I mean, to change my thermostat in the car?
I mean, people resist for a long time, though. People didn't want to get computers or cell phones for a long time, but eventually even your mom has a smartphone, so that means everybody's in.
She texts poorly, but she has one.
But she's got one.
Dan Ackerman, thank you so much.